Page 18 continued. Question 12. Show that the interest of the rivals lies in the strong situations and effective scenes rather than in a well-constructed plot. Answer. The rivals presents strong situations and effective scenes which evolve into a well-constructed plot. See answer to question 11. Question 13. The rivals presents the very atmosphere of Congreve modified by the exaggerated humours of the Johnsonian type. Answer. The Rivals revives the comedy of manners of the Restoration period minus its obscenity and immorality. Congreve's The Way of the World is a successful comedy of manners, where the dramatist presents the dilettante society of the time and at the same time suggests the true love between Mirabell and Millamant. The play is full of the artificial and sophisticated manners of the time. Mirabell and Millamant live in an artificial world where pretense or hypocrisy is the only reality. Mr. Fainall uses endearing names in public for his wife to create an impression that is truly fond of her. In private life, he threatens her with dire consequences for her past familiarities with Mirabell. He even blackmails her mother, Lady Wishfort. He, however, carries on an intrigue with Mrs. Marwood. Lady Wishfort, who is on the wrong side of 50, is dreaming of a lover, and she is even led to make love to a servant disguised as Sir Rowland. Mirabell is sincerely attached to Millamant, but he flatters Lady Wishfort. Millamant herself is full of vanity. She encourages Witwoud and Petulant to become her followers. Thus the world that The Way of the World presents is one of hypocrisy and affectation, of intrigue and heartlessness. Congreve satirizes this society with his pungent humour and wit. Page 19. Sheridan's The Rivals presents the artificial manners of the aristocratic society of the time. The characters come to Bath for regaining health and for enjoying a life of pleasures and idleness. They relish intrigue, gossip, and scandals. Lydia Languish is fond of romantic love-making to a penniless lover. Bob Acres, a braggart, and Sir Lucius, an elderly man, are candidates for the hand of Lydia. Julia and Falkland, another pair of lovers, quarrel on flimsy grounds. Mrs. Malaprop, like Lady Wishfort, dreams of love and carries on love intrigue with Sir Lucius through letters under the name of Delia. But Sheridan presents this aristocratic society in a spirit of pure mirth and fun. He does not show any hypocrisy or immorality of the characters. He brings in certain devices of the sentimental comedy to satirize them in a spirit of innocent laughter. The comedy of humours, popularized by Ben Jonson, helps him in creating the atmosphere of pure fun. The comedy of humours is related to the comedy of manners, because the former takes contemporary society for its norm. Ben Jonson takes his humour characters from his contemporary society. Sheridan, like Jonson, creates fun by exaggerating the particular eccentricities of his characters. His plot is slight, his machinery is hackneyed, the mistaken identity, domestic discord, and clandestine correspondences. But he can produce maximum hilarious effect because of the rapid movement of intrigue born of the peculiarities of characters. Lydia represents the humour of romantic sentimentality. Her very name, Languish, suggests her peculiarity. Mrs. Malaprop is a type of jaded beauty, but she is funny because of her use of wrong words. Bob Acres is the type of braggart soldier whose courage vanishes as the hour of the duel draws near. Sir Lucius O'Trigger always triggers off some trouble. Sir Anthony Absolute is absolute in his sternness and authority. These exaggerated humours create the atmosphere of rollicking fun in the play. Sheridan's The Rivals partakes of the features of the comedy of manners, comedy of humour, and sentimental comedy. The first strain is evident in the presentation of manners of the artificial society. The second strain is pronounced in the depiction of humour characters, and the third is particularly shown in the delineation of the sentimentality of Julia and Falkland. The combination of these different features has produced a comedy of hilarious fun and mirth, but it is at the same time a romantic comedy. Captain Absolute is a romantic hero who passes through adventures in order to woo his lady-love and marry her. He indeed wins his lady-love by courage and cleverness. There is the romantic atmosphere of Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. Question 14. Is it correct to say The Rivals is a youthful gay comedy of no substances, but one which the joyous fancy of the author creates an atmosphere of almost poetical unreality? Answer. The Rivals is a gay comedy of manners. It presents the artificial manners of an aristocratic society. It does not aim at giving the inherent hollowness of this sophisticated society. It does not sound any depth or carry out any rich suggestion. The substance of Sheridan's comedy lies in the presentation of the life of Bath in a spirit of laughter. He satirizes men and manners of the time in a spirit of pure fun. He selects a few hours of the life He selects a few hours of the life of these sophisticated men and women and presents their foolishness, their absurdities, and their fondness for idle life, gossip, and scandals. He does not set forth any profound view of life, and that is not his intention. He skims on the surface of life. Page 20. It is, however, not true to say that his joyous fancy creates an atmosphere of poetical unreality. The social life presented in The Rivals is not poetical unreality. Romantic Lydia, stern Antony, braggart Bob Acres, sentimental Falkland, and self-important Mrs. Malaprop are true to life, though they are exaggerated for the sake of fun in a farcical comedy. Had the play been fanciful and unreal, it would not have elicited the response of this audience of the time in the way it did. The Rivals bids goodbye to the muse of the woeful countenance which was unreal and fanciful. Sheridan depicts the life of Bath with all its fashionable visitors, waters, and salubrious climate. The duels experienced by the author himself, the circulating libraries, the impact of female education on the elderly minds, the elopements and clandestine correspondences. He presents the gay manners of the characters in a gay spirit. Question 15. Write a note on Sheridan's method of characterization with reference to some of the characters of the play The Rivals. Answer. The Rivals is a comedy of manners in which the acquired fashions and manners of the sophisticated past of the society are presented. This type of comedy is related to the comedy of humours popularized by Ben Jonson. Ben Jonson brings out the eccentricities and peculiarities of characters and by exaggerating them draws fun out of them. There are two types of characters of manners and characters of nature. Scott's assertion that the readers will, quote, laugh with Fielding, unquote, and, quote, weep with Richardson, unquote, is an acknowledgement of the difference between two types of characterization. E. M. Forster emphasizes this difference between flat characters and round characters. Characters of manners are invariably comic characters and belong to the surface of experience, and through characters of nature, novelists explore the subterranean areas of human experience. Sheridan's The Rivals is a comedy in which he delights in creating certain humour characters. His sole aim is to create fun out of them. Sheridan's characters are types rather than individuals. They are even called personified humours. Ben Jonson, Sheridan, Dickens, all the famous comedians have delighted to depicting these type characters. Even Shakespeare's some famous characters are types: Jacques, Malvolio, Touchstone, and even Falstaff. The Restoration dramatists also followed this technique. Sheridan in The Rivals depicts some particular humours, within single quotes, of the characters and described them by some label names. Lydia Languish stands for indolent living. Antony Absolute suggests absolutism in his authority and sternness. Acres suggests the countryside. He is a man from the country. The name of Sir Trigger suggests that he is a man with a revolver always ready under his arms. The name of Sir Trigger suggests that he is a man with a revolver always ready under his arms. Mrs. Malaprop is a woman who is inappropriate in her use of words. Sheridan's method of characterization is eminently suited to the kind of life that he presents in his comedy. The play seeks to portray social life of the prosperous class at a level where moods and tempers remain genial and accommodating even in love affairs, and where disappointments in life were never magnified into tragic passions. The characters in such a social milieu are static and flat, typical rather than individual. The type of characters adequately serve the writer's purpose in presenting the social life of the time. The dramatist is more interested in portraying the society than in depicting the individuals. Page 21. The individuals in such a drama form the group characters that portray the age. Lydia, Antony Absolute, Mrs. Malaprop, Bob Acres, Sir Lucius, and Falkland illustrate the society to which they belong. But Sheridan, like Dickens, depicts his characters with gusto and vividness. The characters are vitalized by the author's imagination. He knows the sparks of individuality that reside in each character. Lydia, with her whimsicality, her romantic dreaming, love of quarrels, elopements and sentimental novels, is both a type and an individual. She is whimsical, but she is kind-hearted. She throws away the photograph of Beverley, but she does not throw away her heart. Sir Anthony is a character more complex than his class, impulsive and dogmatic, but generous and kind. Mrs. Malaprop, with all her sternness to her niece and self-assuredness, is not unkind to Lydia. She impresses us as a gracious and proud woman, a delightful figure who smiles on us. Moreover, Mrs. Malaprop, with her pride in conventional powers and complete indifference to what others are thinking of her, is a vivid character. Sheridan draws her character with all the powers and gusto at his command. Bob Acres and Sir Lucius are type characters who are vivid for their vigour and aplomb. David, the servant, with his dry humour and bright common sense, is a very individual character. In this respect, Sheridan anticipates Dickens. They deal with social types and make them vivid by their imaginative conception of the characters. It is not their purpose to depict the springs of human behaviour or the spiritual life of the characters. The characters are two-dimensional, but they are endowed with life and personality. Their individual peculiarities make them vivid and vital. Question 16. What are the possible sources of Sheridan's play The Rivals? Is there anything autobiographical? Answer. The plot of Sheridan's The Rivals is derived from Sheridan's own life. The main theme of the play, the romantic love between Lydia and Absolute, has close resemblance to the author's affair with Miss Elizabeth Linlay. Miss Linlay, a beautiful maid of 16, lived in Bath. She wanted to escape to France with Sheridan as her escort, but she ended by marrying him at Calais. On his return, Sheridan had to measure swords with one Captain Matthews, a former suitor of Elizabeth. Bob Acres is fashioned after Captain Matthews. Sheridan could not settle matters with his father-in-law, Sheridan could get matters settled up with his father-in-law, but his father proved stubborn. Sir Anthony Absolute has thus an original in his father. The background of the play is 18th century Bath. Sheridan came to Bath in 1770 to live with his father, who kept a school of oratory in Bath at that time. He saw the life of Bath at first hand. He knew the topography, the manners and fashions of the place, which he faithfully reproduced in The Rivals. The characters and situations of The Rivals are the stock characters and situations of the Johnsonian and Restoration comedies. Mrs. Malaprop is the type of jaded beauty, a stock character in Restoration comedy. Lady Wishfort in The Way of the World. Her fondness for wrong, high-flown words may be traced to Dogberry and Verges, the constables in Shakespeare's Much Ado About Nothing. She has a resemblance to Mrs. Slipslop in Henry Fielding's Joseph Andrews, to Jabitha Brabble in Smollett's Humphrey Clinker, to Mrs. Heidelberg in Garrick and Coleman's The Clandestine Marriage. Lydia Languish resembles Polly Honeycomb in Coleman's play. Her name seems to have been picked up from Smollett's Humphrey Clinker, whose heroine is Lydia Bramble. Page 22. The Julia Falkland episode has some similarity to the famous ballad The Nut Brown Maid. Smollett's Peregrine Pickle has an episode of the same type. These borrowings have come to Sheridan naturally. It is the credit of the dramatist to combine them into a unified whole and to draw maximum fun out of them. Question 17. Consider The Rivals as a satirical portraiture of society. Answer. Comedy includes satire. Comedy is a satirical exposure of the follies and foibles of the society and individuals. Ridicule is the chief element in a comedy. It ridicules those who offend against common practice and unquestioned propriety in the established fitness of things. Through ridicule, it seeks to correct morals and manners. Its manner is satire and its standpoint is public common sense. Sheridan writes a satiric comedy, but his satire is mild and ironical. He presents men and manners with gentle irony and subtle humour. The life of Bath, with its endless rounds of pleasures, gossip and scandal-mongering, is presented ironically and in a spirit of wit and fun. All who have come to Bath are seekers of idle life and luxury and enjoyments. The circulating libraries are an important feature of the fashionable leisured people. Lydia's fondness for romances and novels referred to in an ironical manner. The aristocrats seek an excuse to visit Bath. Sir Anthony drove into the town simply because he thought that, quote, another fit of gout was coming to make him a visit, unquote. From Fagg we learn that they seldom drink mineral waters. The people are engaged in love intrigues and matrimonial adventures. In describing these, there is no malice or bitterness. Sheridan describes this life with gentle irony and fun. The greatest source of satire in the play is the character of Mrs. Malaprop, who is a representative of the pretentious women of the time who try desperately to live up to the smartness of Bath. Sheridan ridicules through her character the claims of women to all-round education. The tributes paid to her so-called intellectual accomplishments by Sir Anthony and Sir Lucius are ironical. Sheridan creates a lot of satirical fun out of her wrong use of words and her high opinion about herself and her education. The most funny condemnation of her self-importance comes from her own mouth, when she says to Absolute, "Sure, if I reprehend anything in this world, it is the use of my oracular tongue and a nice derangement of epitaphs," within quotes. But Sheridan's portraiture of the woman is enlivened by pure fun. There is no bitterness in the depiction of the woman. The same men may be said about the portrayal of other characters. Sheridan exposes the romantic foolishness of Lydia, the sentimental stupidity of Falkland, the absolutism of Antony, and the laughable natures of a country coward like Bob Acres and the town braggart like Sir Lucius. Bob Acres tries hard to acquire the fashions of the civilized men of the town, and Sir Lucius is a bullying, quarrelsome Irishman. Lydia is the type of girls whose heads are turned by reading fanciful romances. Sheridan puts all these characters before the audience to show their peculiar traits and make fun of them. Ben Jonson presents his characters in their respective humours in order to mock them out of court. There is a purpose on the part of the dramatist to correct the eccentricities of the characters through ridicule. The audience laugh in good humour and at the same time feel the bite of satire in them. But Sheridan's satire has no such bite or sting in it. It is gentle and funny. He creates rollicking fun out of the malapropism of Mrs. Malaprop, romantic stupidity of Lydia, authoritarianism of Antony, and bullying of Sir Lucius.